When I first started creating content, I felt incredibly overwhelmed. It felt like there were 20 different skills that I needed to learn all at the same time, and that I wasn't really getting better at any of them. So in this video, I want to give you 5 very simple, evidence-based things that you can do to start making some real progress as a content creator and start actually enjoying the journey as well. And these are the 5 things that allowed me to go from completely overwhelmed and completely lost to gaining over 60 million views on my videos and actually becoming a full-time content creator. Okay, so for point number 1, I actually want to show you this visual right here. And this huge section is all the information that there is to know about a certain topic. And this tiny section up here is all the information that you actually need to get started. And the reason I'm showing you this is because I was having a conversation with a friend and he was asking me things about color grading, and he was asking me about how to add transitions into your videos. And I said, mate, you do not need to worry about any of that stuff yet. All that stuff comes way later. Right now, you just need to know enough to get things moving and start building some momentum. But the thing is that I was exactly the same. And if I could go back in time to when I was first getting started with content creation, I would probably just show myself this image actually, because I'm a huge overthinker and I'm a huge perfectionist as well. So I was watching YouTube video after YouTube video trying to prepare myself for this big moment instead of just doing the thing and start creating consistently. And all this preparation that I was doing and all this research and all these YouTube videos that I was watching, it just left me more overwhelmed and I was actually more confused than ever. And for you, this might be the biggest reason why you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, is because you're doing all this research and you're watching all these videos trying to prepare for this one big moment, which makes sense, right? Because generally in life, when we have a big moment coming up or a big event, let's say an exam or let's say a job interview or something like that, it makes sense to prepare, it makes sense to study and to do a lot of research. But with content creation, it doesn't really work like that. It's actually the exact opposite. With creating content, the only way to see results is to get started and get practicing as well. And there's actually an incredible story that I want to share with you about this. So there was a college professor and he was teaching a class on how to create clay pots. And he told the first half of the class to go away and make as many clay pots as possible. That was their only objective for that semester. And then he told the second half of the class, you just need to make one clay pot, but you need to make that pot as perfect as you possibly can. And by the end of the semester, the half of the class that he told to make as many clay pots as possible were making way better pots than the other half of the class who he told to go away and just overthink and hyper focus on one specific pot. And you can probably see how that perfectly applies to your journey as a creator, because right now you don't need to know everything. You don't need to do all this research. You only need to know just enough to get started. So yeah, in summary, consume less and create more. And that actually brings me on to the second tip, which is to protect your creative energy. Now, here's the truth. Creative burnout is very real. It doesn't matter how hard you think you work. It doesn't matter how many hours you spend at your laptop. With a creative pursuit like making videos, there is always a limit. There is always a point where you have to step back and protect your creative energy. But why is this so important? Well, because in life, we are surrounded by distractions that kill that creative energy. And this is how I see it from my point of view. So when I wake up in the morning, I feel great, you know, my creative tank is full. But in that same morning, if I grab my phone and I check Instagram and I start replying to messages and I check the news and I see that, you know, World War III is about to start, brilliant. All of these different things, they drain my creative energy so badly. And maybe you've noticed the same thing, because each of these small distractions actually steals a piece of your attention. And this actually has a name. It's called attention residue, which means that when you finally sit down to actually do some creative work, a small part of your attention, a very small part of your focus is still on that news story that you saw, or you're still thinking about that message that someone sent you. And if you are, let's say, writing a script or you're filming a video, you need your creative energy. You need presence, you need clarity, you need focus. And that's why I'm so serious about protecting my mornings, because right now it's about 9:30 in the morning and I've been up for a few hours and I haven't checked my phone, I haven't checked my laptop, I have no idea what's going on. And the reason is I've just come to realize how precious that creative energy is, that there is no way that I'm just gonna waste it on Instagram Reels, like no chance. Okay, so the third tip is to pick one metric that matters the most. Because one of the easiest ways to get overwhelmed if you you are a beginner is to start obsessing over all these metrics and all these numbers on a screen. You know, with Instagram, we have followers and likes and shares, and then YouTube is even worse because we have views and subscribers and then retention and click-through rate. And when you try and track or pay attention to all of these different numbers in your analytics, you're going to get so overwhelmed. And my advice would be that if you're just starting out, pick one metric to focus on, and that can kind of be your North Star, and you can just kind of forget everything else for now. However, this one metric should not be views, it should not be subscribers, it should not be followers, because those numbers are lagging indicators. They actually come after all the important stuff. Because when you're still building your foundations, your one metric, your shooting star that you need to focus on, needs to be something that is fully in your control. And this is going to be slightly different for everyone watching this video, but your only goal, your only number that you care about is, did I hit my one simple target this week? So for example, did I post one short form piece of content every single day, or did I post one YouTube video this week? And that's it. That's all you need to worry about. You just need to track something that actually reflects your inputs and actually reflects your efforts, instead of all these different numbers on a screen that you have no control over. And for some of you watching, this might sound a little bit too simple, but if you are not even consistent yet, if you don't even have your consistency down when it comes to posting videos, why are you worrying about retention? Why are you worrying about things like click-through rate? All of that stuff comes way later. You know what it would be like? It would be like going to the gym 2 times and then stressing out because your bench press isn't improving. That's what you're doing right now when you're worrying about all of these different metrics. Because when you start to go to the gym consistently, or when you start to post videos consistently, then you can start worrying about your bench press. Then you can start worrying about things like subscribers and views and click-through rate and all that stuff. But it actually gets even worse, because when you're a beginner, all of these numbers that you're checking, they're not just distracting, they're not just overwhelming, they're actually extremely demotivating. Because if you're a beginner, all of these numbers are going to be terrible anyway. Your views are going to be very low. You might even have days where you lose a couple of subscribers. So what that means is that every time you open up your analytics to check the views on your videos, it's just going to be another small hit to your motivation. Because let's just be honest with each other, you want results, and you probably want results right now. You probably feel a little bit impatient, and that's just not how it works. Like, you do need to give it some time. So like I said, just track one metric and play a game you can actually win. And the way I do this is, you can see I have my main Notion template right here, and this is how I track my progress. This is how I track my YouTube videos. And you can see that I don't track the views that my videos are getting. I don't track my subscribers. All I'm tracking is how many videos I'm posting and how consistent I'm being, because that's all I need to focus on, because at the end of the day, it's the only thing that's in my control. Okay, so tip number 4 is to build a second brain. Okay, so what on earth does that even mean? Well, for the longest time, I thought that building a second brain was this weird, fancy productivity hack. But literally all it means is having a place to store and organize all of your ideas and all of your inspirations when it comes to your content. And bear with me on this one, because if you're not doing this already, this might genuinely change everything for you. Because one of the biggest reasons that we get overwhelmed as new content creators is because we have all these ideas and we do all this research, but we don't have anywhere to keep it. And at least for me, I just kind of end up forgetting it all. So what that means is that when you actually sit down to start making videos and start coming up with ideas, then you get a little bit overwhelmed because you're not really sure what to make videos about. And this is where your second brain comes in. And I think it's much easier if I just show you this then. So this is my second brain. So this is the Notion template I use to basically collect ideas and bits of inspiration that I find, whether I'm just out and about on my day-to-day life. If I have a video idea, I'll jot it down in here. Or if I'm watching a YouTube video or a podcast, I'll just, take down ideas, screenshot thumbnails, and keep them in this template. And you can see down here we have video ideas. So this is where I just jot down any cool titles that I see when I'm browsing through YouTube. It doesn't even have to be in my niche. If I see a cool title in the fitness niche or in any niche really, I'll just make a note of it in here. And to be honest, I might actually blur these so someone doesn't, steal all my ideas. And you can also see that I have thumbnails as well. So if I see a cool thumbnail on YouTube that I want to take inspiration from, I'll just quickly screenshot it and shove it in here. And what this means is that when I sit down to create my next video, I don't get overwhelmed. It's way more streamlined. It's way more intuitive, because I can just come into here, I can come into this Notion template, and I have this really cool vault, this kind of, this collection of ideas and little bits and pieces of inspiration. And I'm very, very forgetful. So I guarantee that if I didn't have something like this, I would have forgotten all of these ideas. So yeah, this has helped me a lot on my own journey, and I'm hoping that it'll do the same for you. And that actually brings me nicely onto the fifth and final tip. And this is more of a positive one. This is a nice one. And that is to understand that it's supposed to feel like this. So the fact that you feel a little bit overwhelmed right now and maybe a little bit lost, you feel like there's so many different things you have to learn. There's all these different skills that you have to master. That feeling is completely normal. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not cut out for this. It doesn't mean that you're falling behind. All it means is that this is something that you actually care about. And I want you to understand that every single creator that you know has experienced this. I've experienced these feelings. And to be honest, I still do, even to this day, because I would hate for you to quit right now because you feel uncertain or because you feel overwhelmed. When in fact, that's exactly how it's meant to feel. You are exactly where you're meant to be right now, and that's okay. That's completely fine. And on that positive note, if you are in your overthinking era or you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, I made this video for you right here where I literally just lay out the easiest and quickest way to become a full-time content creator. So yeah, click onto that video and hopefully I'll see you there.